Welcome to the DFS Army YouTube channel. I am Razzle11, and you can find me on Twitter at Razzle11Grinds. I'm going to take a look at some pitching for today, the 4th of July. Happy 4th to everybody. Hopefully, everyone's being safe, but having a ton of fun. Uh, it is not quite as early as normal. I slept in a little too much today, but we're going to take a look at two slates worth of pitching. We have an 8-game day slate and a 5-game main slate. I believe it's what it's referred to as. Yeah. So we'll just jump right in. Some interesting weather going on. Boston game looks to be most likely going to be PPD. We have it at about 60% risk with an 80% delay risk. So I would guess that we learn about that one somewhat early today. A bunch of games in some domes. And ironically, the two of the lowest game time temp games are in California, which is kind of weird. San Francisco and San Diego. We have some interesting pitching spots, some tougher decisions to be made. Some of the better pitchers taking on better teams. So let's dig in. Let's start right away at the top in a matchup between Eflin and Nola. Obviously, you know that Nola has been a guy that I've been trying to avoid most of the season, based on what my belief is in terms of aces pitching deep into the postseason the year prior. So Eflin's actually a minus 140 favorite in this game. We have an 8 total, but he's been phenomenal pitching in Tampa. He's obviously taking on his former team, but his numbers have been great this season, especially at home. He has been giving up a few runs. Strikeouts are there. Solid ground ball rate. Uh, Not throwing a ton of pitches overall. He did increase over 100 and then kind of drop back down. Uh, I would guess he's probably good for 6 to 7 innings. Obviously, he went 7 last time out and just 83 pitches. I don't really expect that to be the case with this Philadelphia squad. They do have some guys that can take a lot of pitches and walk, so I would guess he's more of a 6 inning guy today. Nola hasn't been as great on the road, obviously worrisome. Pretty volatile, 4+ runs allowed in 3 of his last 4 starts and 5 of his last 7 starts. So uh, trends aren't great for him. Strikeouts are down a little bit. Tampa Bay can strike out. The overall offense of Tampa Bay has kind of cooled, but they're still such an elite team at home that I just don't think I can go to Nola in this spot. Uh, as we dig in, maybe I have to include him in my pool at maybe a 15% clip to make everything work. He does have upside. Like, I'm not denying that. It's just I don't know if he gets there often enough to make it viable on the slate. Jesus Luzardo, definitely one of my favorite pitchers in baseball. He's a minus 190 favorite against the Cardinals. Do have some worries in the matchup, but he's been phenomenal at home, which is definitely strong for us. No runs allowed in the last 2 starts with 9 strikeouts. Trends are really strong. I do worry that St. Louis does have a few guys that can hit left-handed pitching well, and when Luzardo is off, he ends up way off. There's usually an inning where you're just hoping that he makes it through with a couple guys on base rather than giving up a hit, because he does seem like somebody that once he gets flustered out there, things kind of snowball a little bit more. But I love the upside. Uh, Love the fact he's a minus 190 home favorite. Don't really love the price point. The idea of paying over 10K for him, a little worrisome, but I definitely have him well above Nola for me today. Senga at over 10K, that's worrisome for me as well. Uh, can be dominant, but can walk a ton of batters. And you know that I've been a fan of this Arizona offense much of the season. Now that said, I believe the Arizona offense has cooled down a little bit recently. Corbin Carroll's been dealing with a shoulder issue. Uh, maybe there's a good spot. Sega is a minus 120 favorite, but the game does have a 9 total right now. Uh, I like the upside he offers, um, and I think it's a slightly better spot than, say, no, excuse me. Um, he's not as accomplished as Nola, so there's a trade off there. But I think it is a better spot than Nola. So Senga would definitely be ahead of him if I had to make my pitching pool decision right this second. Clark Schmidt, big drop off from the four guys down. Struggled in two starts against Baltimore. Been decent at home, but home runs can be an issue. Not a big K guy. Uh, so most likely I'm going to end up off of Clark Schmidt. He is a minus 125 favorite. Sorry about that. I had to take a pause and take a sip. Um, but yeah, Clark Schmidt, not really going to make my pool today. Actually, he rarely makes my pool, to be honest. So, Brandon Belak, uh, getting the start as they push JP France back. I'm going to have to look, I guess. I don't know. He must have been in the minors for the last couple weeks. I have to look into his minor league numbers to see if he stayed stretch out. I'm not really sure. Um, but ultimately, I am interested. He has flashed some strong abilities when he started before, and it's Colorado. We know how weak the Colorado offense is. Uh, so unless Belak went down to the minors and was just lit up for the last 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks or whatever it is, uh, I'm going to guess that Belak is going to make my pitcher pool. It's a little more expensive than I would have thought, given his most recent outings at the major league level were pretty lackluster. But the matchup is nice, and he is a minus 195 favorite right now. So Belak is definitely going to be an option for us. No thank you, and Kyle Hendricks. Even though we know that I like picking on the Brewers with pitching, in his 3 road starts, he's been pretty strong. Minus the fact he has no strikeouts. Um, I'm just not interested in going there. Um, Maybe I make a mistake and he has, you know, I guess this game like he had against San Francisco, which I don't see happening, but it's certainly possible. Uh, I feel like we most likely see something like the 14 points last time out, maybe the 10 against Baltimore when he only allowed 2 runs and got the win, but still just one strikeout. So I don't really think I'm all that interested. And he is an underdog in the game, and the total is 9.5. So I don't feel terrible about skipping over Hendricks. Kyle Gibson, like I mentioned, with the Yankees, uh, he is a slight underdog. The game total is at 9. He did shut down the Yankees the first time he faced them this season. He has been better on the road. Recent form, not great. A lot of things going into it. I really look at recent form just because pitchers go through a lot through a season. They may have to make a ton of adjustments. Uh, Mechanics get off, that sort of thing. So uh, I just don't like to see some terrible trends going into a start. Uh, and then obviously having a 9 total. And I would guess the New York weather is probably decent for hitting. Yeah, it's in the 80s, slight wind blowing out. That shouldn't affect much, but obviously the ballpark is great for hitting in general. Kenta Maeda is intriguing. I'm just not sure if I'm going to get there. Has been horrendous at home in 2 starts, uh, but he's coming off a great start against Atlanta. I mean, I consider it great just because that offense is so dangerous, and he went down there and allowed just 2 runs in 5 innings. Um, Not a massive fantasy point performance, but his first start back from the IL, he dominated Detroit. Kansas City is definitely more like Detroit than they are Atlanta. The wind is blowing out to left field at about 10 miles an hour in Minnesota, and it is pretty warm, but he is a minus 195 favorite. I think he should make my player pool, but we'll see as the day goes on or the morning. since the slate starts in just a few hours. Kind of looking at some of the other names down here, I'm not really interested in much. Wade Miley, maybe. I mean, we all know that I don't really like Wade Miley, but two of his three starts since returning from the IL, he's gone for 20 plus DK points. Uh, I don't think the Cubs' offense is all that dangerous, but they did start out the season solidly against left-handed pitching, so I'm gonna have to dig into his history against the Cubs and just see how the Cubs have been swinging against left-handed pitching recently. Um, but the other names down here just don't do it for me. Uh, Wainwright against the struggling Miami squad, but Wainwright is struggling mightily, so uh, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to find much for value. Dane Dunning has had some ridiculous starts coming off an elite performance, but that weather in Boston is going to end up pushing us off of pitching. So we're 11 minutes in. Let's take a look at the main quick, just the 5 game slate. Uh, at the top, Ohtani. Definitely Ohtani. He's actually an underdog in this game. San Diego's a minus 130 favorite, but Ohtani, elite upside. Uh, 32 plus DK points in each of his last 2 starts on the mound, one against an elite Dodger squad. So no issues going there. No thank you for Bieber against Atlanta. Giolito against Toronto. He has been really good at home, so maybe he's an option. K's are there. Problem is Toronto isn't a huge K team, but I think we do have to consider him on the slate and keep him in our pool. Bassett has been far worse on the road, which is worrisome. Did dominate this White Sox team. Well, didn't give up many hits, but did walk a few guys. But um, yeah, I like Bassett's upside. The matchup is so-so. The White Sox offense isn't all that dangerous, but again, his road numbers overall are a bit worrisome. Initially, I didn't know if I was going to go to Musgrove. He's been solid, but Trout hurt his wrist last night, potentially out of the lineup today. I think Musgrove then becomes a stronger play, and he is a minus 130 favorite in this game against Ohtani. Uh, so Vegas is telling me something that I wasn't expecting. So I'll have to dig in a little bit more, but I think Musgrove at 8K might be a solid option for us. Skubal making his return. I have to dig into his minor league numbers, rehab numbers. He's a minus 178 favorite in this game. I'm a Skubal fan, so I hope he's good to go, stretched out and everything. But that's one we'll dig in and we'll update the members at TFS Army and let them know where I stand as the day goes on. Kobe Allard, I don't think I'm going there. Cleveland doesn't strike out a ton. He is a minus 125 favorite, but he's never really done it consistently at the major league level. I just don't think he's going to do it all of a sudden, today after a strong performance against the Twins. Sheehan, I used him in Coors, so I guess I have to be willing to use him tonight. Uh, he's been solid so far, so I'm going to go with him. Probably more of a 15 to 20% share overall. JP Sears, somebody that I used last time out, and he hurt me, but taking on a Detroit squad, we know how weak Detroit is offensively. So, sorry, offensively, I guess. So maybe there's some Sears upside. I'm not really sure if I'll get there, but he is in consideration. It's going to be tough because I think I prefer Sheehan and then Skubal and Musgrove down here. So there we have it. There's a look at pitching for today. Happy 4th to everybody again. And I appreciate you guys checking this out. If you want to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, get the alert anytime we drop videos at GFS Army. If you want to join us, I will put links in the description below. You can use promo code RAZ, it's RAZ, for 10% off. Or I believe you can still use Summer50 for 50% off your first month. And as always, best of luck, everybody.